Hello, welcome to episode 234 of the Craft House Magic podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and today is the 5th of January. So happy new year everybody. So today I'm going to go through the things that I've achieved from my Make 9 list from last year in terms of sort of knitting and crochet. I'm going to talk about my goals for this year. I've got quite a few more things on the list for this year. Might be a little bit overestimating my abilities. But you know what, I had fun making these lists, and hopefully some of those projects might inspire you to cast on or start hooking. So I'm going to go through those, and then I've got some sewing to show you, which is something that I made for Jensen. I have some information on my shop update. So in the shop update I'm going to talk about prize winners, so those people who have won prizes for the Craft 20 a day and also the Craft House Magic Christmas Craft Along for 2022. I'm going to choose the winners for those, and then I'll just do some information on my shop. And I also have a little appearance from Jensen at the end of the podcast with something hand sewn to wear. So let's get on with the knitting Make 9 achievements from 2022. So first on my list was the Wishmaker mitts, and I did finish these. Really pleased about that. They are a lovely pattern. So I absolutely love these little dandelion clocks. They are knitted in a mixture of two different yarns. It is Jameson's and Smith, that's the white, and this sort of mint, and I'll leave links to my Ravelry page so you can see the exact numbers for the colours that I used. I knitted these on 2.5mm needles. The pattern says 2.25, but I used a 2.5mm needle because I know that about the stitch count that they gave for this mitten, I know that 2.5mm is a good gauge for me because I knit colour work really tightly, so I just went up that 0.25 of a millimetre and they fit really nicely. I like to have a pair of colourwork mittens every year, and I tend to start those quite early at the beginning of the year, so I'm hoping to get a pair of those cast on by next week. And I've actually got 2 pairs on my list for this coming year because I really enjoy knitting colourwork mittens. The 2 pairs that I've got on next on the list this year are actually full mittens rather than these ones that are cut off. I'll show you what these look like on. Like that. Oh, aren't they lovely? Love these. So they're nice and cosy and warm because they are proper ball wool. And I just love the colours I've chosen. I think the original pattern had a different colour for this section here, so it was 3 colours in the mitten, but I decided to stick to 2 just to sort of simplify it a little bit. So those are the first thing accomplished off my list. The next thing off my list I've literally only just finished, so you haven't seen this completed. But how cute is this? So this is the Woollen Ornaments by Susan B. Anderson, and the last time I did a podcast I showed you the jumper and the mittens, but now I've finished a little hat to go with it. So I changed the pattern very slightly. There's different options to do some colour work, or you could do some embroidery over the top. I did the option with the embroidery, and I just changed around the embroidery. I did a little bit by moving the crosses slightly from the original sort of pattern, and I added some crosses to the hat as well and did it in 3 colours rather than sort of 1 or 2. I thought that toned in nicely with the jumper and the mittens as well. I've done the pom-pom in the same colour as the mittens, and I just had 3 colours that go together really well. Actually, if you look carefully, I've used leftover yarn from the Wishmaker mitts, and which is this minty green and the white, and then I had some other yarn that I used for colourwork mittens that I've used for the gloves. So that is one of my favourite things that I've made for my Christmas tree. I'm definitely going to make more of these. It's double-sided, so the only thing that really annoys me is when you make pom-poms that are really tiny, it's really difficult to get them so that they're really plump all the way round, so there is a section there where it's all tied together. But I think when you've got it hung on the Christmas tree, who is going to notice? The only thing I haven't done is I haven't actually blocked these, but I think it still looks really nice. Item number 3 is a cowl. So this is the shift cowl, and I've shown this quite a few times on the podcast now. So it is a cowl that is knitted flat, and then you join it at the back here but it is made out of my own hand spun yarn, which is really lovely. I've actually used some of it and I love the textured pattern on this. It's really a real pleasure to knit on, especially when you've got yarns that are sort of, because they're sort of hand spun, they're variegated a little bit, and I think that really brings out the tones in it. I love the way this lighter yarn here, it goes from like a minty green to a cream when you actually knit with it, and I like the way that this darker yarn is quite tonal. If you look really closely, there's different colours in there as well. I only wish that I'd actually done this section right on the front there where you're going to see it more, but I think it's still really nice. This colour here, this paler blue, it was more of an all over colour because I dyed it after I'd spun it, and it does look really nice on. I like the way this sort of stands up because it is hand spun and quite a dense yarn. It sort of holds up quite nicely around your neck, keeps you lovely and cosy, so I'm really pleased I knitted this. There is another pattern by Andrea Maury which is called the Night Shift Shawl, which is the same pattern I think, but in a shawl version and also in thicker yarn. So this pattern is written for a sport weight yarn, and I've used a mixture of fingering and DK weight yarns for this. I think when they're hand spun you can get away with a little bit of variability. I think it's come together really nicely, and the Night Shift Shawl is actually like an Aran weight or a worsted weight yarn, so great for using up hand spun yarn, so I might cast that on at some point. It isn't actually on my list, but it's still in my radar. So the next thing on my list is a beret. Unfortunately, this doesn't go with the cowl I'm wearing, so you'll just have to close your eyes and ignore the fact that it doesn't match. But this is the Sterenn beret, and this pattern is by Alongvek Anna, and I used some yarn out of my stash, held double with some fluffy alpaca lace weight yarn out of my shop. So the sort of coloured yarn is by Hedgerow Yarns, and then I've held it double with some grey lace weight mohair to make this beautiful soft hat. And it's got this really cool star shape on it, which I love. I love wearing a beret. I think they suit me a little bit better than other hats. I think it's because I can wear it with my hair sort of down. I think it suits me a lot better. So I'm really pleased about that. I think I fancy making some more berets too. So the next thing on my list that I've actually achieved is this cute little butterfly in Cocoon. So in the Cocoon, he looks like this, and then you can take the cocoon off and release the little cute butterfly. He is a little bit bashed around because Jensen has been cuddling him a little bit, but that's how he looks. Very, very cute. And a great way to use up scraps of leftover yarn. So the pattern actually calls for a sport weight yarn for both the little case or cocoon and the main body, but I actually used fingering weight yarn out of my stash. But the only thing that I would have done differently if I did it again is if I'd go down a needle size, I think, just to tighten up the gauge a little bit. If you look really closely, the stuffing sort of pushes out the stitches a little bit, and you can see the stuffing a little bit inside, but still very, very cute, and something that I'd like to knit again actually. I love the fact that he's got a little cocoon, and I know that Susan B. Anderson does another pattern with little babies in little cocoons as well. How cute. So those are the things off my Make 9 list I actually achieved. But I do have a couple of things that are still on the needles, so they still count, so I've sort of done half of them. Well, at least with one of them I've done about half. So this is my Ziggy Interrupted crocheted wrap. It's a little bit creased up, but you get the idea. I've done about half of this one. I find that the little squares are really time consuming for me to make, and I sort of put it to one side thinking I need to get lots of things finished so I can show you guys on the podcast, and then I haven't picked it up again for a while, but once I pick it up again, hopefully I'll go zooming along. I'm just not a very quick crocheter. Like I said, I've done about half of that, and then there's a little border that I need to finish off, and it's in 4 yarns I picked up from the East Anglia Fibre Festival, and they are 2 of them from Ducky Darlings, these 2 darker purples from Ducky Darlings, and they're both poison in 2 different yarn bases. One is a merino nylon and one has got yak and merino and silk in it. And then I've got Snail's Pace by the Woollen Witch, which is this one, and then the Camel's Yarn in Love Letter. So those really, I love the way they work together, and it's nice to be able to use different dyers in the same project, because I was able to sort of pick a couple of yarns and then walk around the show and match them up physically. It was really good. So hopefully I shall try and get this finished by the next East Anglia Fibre Festival. The other thing that I've got on my needles that was from my Make 9 is the Stephen West mystery knit along for last year, which was the Twist and Turns shawl, and I've managed to do section 1 and it's a little bit creased again because it's just been shoved in the bag for a little while. I did finish section 1 during Vlogmas and I haven't done any more. Those are the things that I've actually managed to at least start for last year's Make 9. There's a couple of things on my list that I didn't get to start, which I'm a little bit annoyed about, but I just didn't have enough knitting time last year. I'm hoping it's going to improve slightly this year. So the next thing on my list was the Magnolia Bloom jumper by Camilla Vad, and it is a gorgeous, really thick jumper. So it's listed as a worsted weight jumper on Ravelry, but the sample that is in the pictures is actually knitted, I think it's in a fingering and a fluffy mohair held double. So I was a little bit unsure about what to sort of put together to knit the jumper. I don't know whether to go for a single yarn or hold it double, so I was umming and ahhing about it, and unfortunately that little bit of extra time umming and ahhing made it so I didn't actually start casting it on. But I do, and that is still on my Make 9 list for this year, so I do want to make that. And another project that is going to be on this current year's Make 9 list, and I didn't finish off last year's list, was the Comfort Fade cardigan by Andrea Mowry, and that's a DK cardigan. And I love in the picture how the colours fade, and I was thinking, oh, which colours should I use? And it does require quite a few skeins. I think from the top of my head, I think it was like 8 or 10 skeins of DK yarn. So I wanted to make sure that I was really sure about my colour choices before I either purchased some or dyed up my own set. I think I'm going to dye my own set because purchasing 8 or 10 skeins of DK weight yarn is going to come up quite expensive. So if I dye it myself, I'll feel less guilty about yarn purchases. So that is what I've achieved from my Make 9 list. It isn't too bad. I've got a few things done. But now I'm going to talk about what the coming year has in store. So I have been terrible. I could not decide. I just couldn't make 9 choices. There was too many things I wanted to knit. So I have 2 knitting and crochet Make 9s for this year. The first set is all for Jensen and it's all knitting, but the second set is for me and it also includes some knitting, and there might be 12 instead of 9 in that list as well. So let me get started, and I'll pop pictures up here as I'm talking so I can explain to you why I fancy knitting them. So first of all, this list is for Jensen. So first on my list is the Spiral Beanie by Babi Crisotto. I just thought this was fantastic, and the fact that you can use 3 different yarns to sort of do a spiral stripe, just thought that would be really lovely. It is an Aran weight or a worsted weight hat, and I thought that would be fantastic for Jensen because we're in winter at the moment and he needs a nice cozy little hat, and I thought he needs a second hat as well. So I've chosen the Baby Bear Bonnet, which is by Pernilla Larson. And that is a DK weight hat. Well, it's like a little bonnet with little ears on, which is really cute. Now the sample pattern again is a fingering weight and a lace weight fluffy yarn held double, but I think that I'm going to knit mine in a DK weight yarn because I am not sure whether it's going to irritate him, and obviously because he's a little baby he can't tell me that it's itching, he's just going to pull it off, and I'm not going to know whether he's just too hot or itchy. So I'm going to stick with a DK weight merino, so that it's nice and cozy and keeps him nice and warm, especially around the neck with it being a bonnet. Next choice, number 3, is the Baby Vertebrae by Kelly Van Nykirk. Now this only goes up to 2 years actually, but I did knit a newborn vertebrae when Jensen, well I should say Adam's mum knitted Jensen a newborn vertebrae, and he wore that absolutely loads. It's a fingering weight little cardigan. It only comes to sort of here rather than right round the front, so if he does spill anything it's not going to go on the cardigan and it won't need washing as much. So I think that'll be something that's really useful. Number 4 is the 11s cardigan by Lisa Chemry. And I just thought this was stunning. It obviously has a Lord of the Rings reference, and or the Hobbit reference, and it's just such a cosy sort of worsted weight cardigan. I'm going to knit it in Aran weight. That's the sort of UK alternative, and I just think that that would be such a nice staple to have for Jensen to keep cosy in the winter months. Number 5 is a jumper for Jensen. That is called the Wander jumper, and it's by Tin Can Knits. Now this jumper goes up to adult sizes, so I may need to knit an adult version for me as well. I just think that's really, really lovely. Number 6 is the Little Camiro, which is by Tanis Lavelli. I've had this on my list to do for myself for ages, and this is the baby version, so Jensen's going to have the first version, and then if it works out nicely I might knit myself one as well to match. Number 7 is a Rocky. These are some leggings by Tin Can Knits again. I thought it'd be really nice to have some cosy little trousers for him to wear, especially because he's relatively small at the moment. There'll be a small in knit to do, and they're a fingering weight yarn. Number 8 is the Rye Light socks by Tin Can Knits. I'm going to try these out, the proper pattern, because I did sort of look at the pattern for numbers before. It is a free pattern, and I'm going to do Jensen a few pairs of socks. I might do 1 or 2 Rye Light and then try some other sock patterns as well. But he needs a few pairs of hand knitted socks. And last but not least on Jensen's list is the Moose by Susan B. Anderson. I just thought this was lovely. It's sort of a little bit Christmassy as well, so hopefully I'll get it finished by next year. It is knitted in Aran weight or worsted weight yarn, so I'll either knit it in worsted weight or I might sort of scale down the size and knit it in fingering weight yarn. I don't know. Or I could do 2 fingering weight yarns held double to use up my stash of yarns rather than dyeing up some specially for the Moose. But it's very, very cute. Now, I'm just going to go into the patterns that I want to knit for me. I really should have narrowed it down to 9 altogether, because I'm not going to get all of these done. In no way am I going to get all these done, but I've just got a list of my sort of priorities and I can pick from those rather than sort of just going, oh, what am I going to knit now? I've got this list that I can go refer to and decide what I'm going to knit next. Because I like making these lists for Make 9. Not because I have to do everything on the list, but it does make me look at all my sort of favourites that I've got on my Ravelry page, and I go back and I pick my favourites of my favourites and make a list of my favourites, and then I know that I can just go back and look at the list and think, right, I want to do these next. Have a look at my list and select one on there, and I can always change it. It's absolutely fine. I just find it so much fun getting all the interesting patterns together and deciding what I want to do next and deciding a sort of priorities list. So my patterns that I want to do for me start with number 1. Actually, I say for me, but this is for my mum first. The Winter's Walk hat by Tracy Miller, and she's one of the grocery girls. And mum picked this pattern herself, so I shall be knitting it especially for mum. It's a DK weight hat, and she has requested a rather large pom-pom to go on the top. So I might actually give her one of my very fancy alpaca pom-poms. So we shall see whether it suits or not. We shall see. So number 2 is the Mere, which is the Mystery Beret by Woolly Wormhead, and I just thought this was really nice. It's a beret, but it's also an Aran weight hat, so that'll be nice and thick for the winter. There is a little bit of lace in it, but I just thought I haven't got a heavier weight beret, so that'll be on my list. Number 3 is the Songbird mittens by Erica Hooser. Now this is obviously one of my mittens patterns that I need to do every year because I love them. And the other colourwork mittens are the Expecto Patronum mitten from Diana Waller, and I have actually got the Harry Potter knitting book that these are out of, so I'm going to knit those out of there. Number 5 and number 6 are the Comfort Fade cardigan and the Magnolia Bloom cardigan that I talked about earlier in my Make 9 from last year. I will leave a list of these in the description bar as well with the links to them if you want to find them. Number 8, I've had my eye on this and I've ummed and ahed about this pattern since it came out, and I think I've decided that I definitely want to knit it, but I wanted to make some changes. So this is the Hortensia wrap cardigan by Amy Loudon, and I love the wrap shape of it. I'm not keen on the very puffy sleeves here. I think they wouldn't be very practical for me. They look lovely. I'd love to wear them actually, but I just think that I'd get them in everything. I'd get them filthy. They'd be getting on my nerves, so I'm going to knit a slim sleeve on it instead. But I do think that the wrap sort of shape will be a nice sort of flattering shape on me. The other thing that was stopping me knitting it before is that I think, I tend to wear cardigans open quite a lot, and this one I think you need to wear it so it's closed, because it'd look funny sort of hanging open with it being a wrap cardigan. But I think I'm just going to go for it, and I'll just have to wear it closed. As simple as that. I'm sure I'll be fine. The last knitting thing, my supposedly Make 9 list, which is actually 12, is the Aria shawl by Amber O'Brien, and I just thought this would be really nice. It's a 2-colour DK weight shawl, so I thought that'd be nice to have a DK weight shawl instead. It's unusual for me to have very many DK weight shawls. I think I've possibly got 2, so that'll be a nice thing to add to my collection. I've got rather a lot of shawls though, really, so I don't really need another one, but you can't not knit a shawl every year, can you? So I'm going on to my crochet projects now in my Make 12. So the first thing on my crochet section of the sort of adult makes is the Weekender blanket by Sandra Paul. I've had my eye on this for ages. It's like little hexagons, and I thought, what am I going to do with my advent calendars? And I think the gorgeous bright colours from Giddy Yarns will be lovely for the hexagons of the Weekender blanket, so I'm going to do that. Whether I will get it finished this year or even make much of a start on it, we shall see. But I still fancy starting that. I've got a real inspiration to do some sort of hanging baskets for the wall in crochet, and I saw the Suzette double hanging basket by Guti. I thought that would be really nice to sort of hang stuff on the wall. I think it's originally designed to put plants in and things, but I thought I can put crafty things in there to hang off the wall as well. I think that would be really nice. And the other sort of wall hanging thing is the Fleur hanging basket by Mel Harrison. So they're 2 different designs. One is like a double, one's a single, and I thought that'd be nice to hang things in my craft room. So those are all my crochet and knitting things for the coming year that I want to get on with, or at least start anyway. And I also need to finish the mystery knit along from Stephen West from last year, and also my Ziggy Interrupted as well. So, and also a couple of blankets that I've got started and I haven't finished, but don't tell Barbara, she'll tell me off. So I am now onto my sewing section, and I have sewn up a little garment for Jensen to wear. So this is a strawberry sweatshirt by Sew Over It. It's one of their poppy and jazz patterns, and this pattern goes from 0 months to 6 years, so it'll be really handy to have a jumper pattern for when he's a little bit older. So I sewed the 12 to 18 months version out of some scraps out of my stash. The main fabric that I used was a French terry. I thought, it'd be really plain if I just leave it just like a grey sweatshirt, and I had this strip of leftover fabric, and this is a cotton jersey, and I just thought, I'm just going to stick a bit over the top and have it so that it's like a panel in the centre. That was the way it was cut to start with, and I just placed it over the front panel of the jumper, zigzag stitched that on, and then just treated it as one piece of fabric from then on. You can see that I've just used a black zigzag stitch to attach it. So the assembly of the strawberry sweatshirt is really simple. I didn't actually do any top stitching on this at all. I just used an overlocker for the rest of the assembly to get it together. It's got cuffs and a bottom band and a neckband, so it's completely enclosed just by using an overlocker. You can do some top stitching around the neck and the cuffs if you want to. So I'm really pleased with how it came out, and actually it fits quite well. I'm really pleased with the fit of it. I think it'll last a little while. It's quite a loose fit on Jensen. I will get him to show you at the end of the podcast what it looks like on. But it is a very cute little jumper. The pattern is something I can use for lots of different fabrics and make for a few years to come, at least until he's 6 years old. So now it's the shop update section. But first of all, I want to announce some winners for the Makalongs that we've been running for the last 3 months up until the end of December. So we had the Craft 20 a day, which is actually still running this year, but I'm going to draw prizes for the entries up until December. And those winners are Elaine from Canada and Nicola from the UK. And the winners for the Craft House Magic Christmas Craft Along for 2022 were Lena from Pennsylvania and Raquel from Tennessee. So congratulations to you guys. Make sure that you reply to my messages that I've sent out just with your full postal address so I can get those prizes sent out to you. So for the shop update, I have already listed the winter warmers project bags and sock sets, and this is the artwork that I painted to sort of represent the sort of cozy little cottage on a hill in the trees with all the snow around it. So this sort of picture is going to represent what the project bag and sock set will sort of be like, but obviously it's a surprise, the final thing, because it won't look exactly the same as this, because the project bag will be applique and free motion, and obviously the yarn, I'll take some of the colours from this picture so that you get an idea of what the colours might be like. So those will be available on my shop until the 15th of January, and they will be shipped by the end of January. So the 2023 yarn clubs, if you didn't watch last week's episode, I told you about my new theme. So this year I'm going to do the music from the movies action adventure edition for the sort of sock set stroke shawl set club, which is a mystery club. So you can choose a sock set, or you can have one of the bases that are more appropriate for making a shawl. But what I've done is I've designed so that January and February's colours go together so you can use them for a shawl. So I've done that for every set of 2 months. So January and February. I'll also list the option to have 2 months that you can purchase at once to save on postage as well, but you know that if they're listed as 2 months, those are designed to go together. And I've also opened up the 70-gram sock sets, so 50 grams and a 20-gram contrast. In terms of the mini sets for this year, I'm going to do the mixtape minis again, because I do love doing those. I pick some of my favourite songs, like a bit like you would record onto a mixtape, and I tell you a little bit about each of those songs, and I make sure that each of those mini colours goes together so that you can use them in the project. And they're 5 either 20-gram or 10-gram minis. So this year I've opened up 10-gram minis as well, but I thought 10 grams would be brilliant because those 10 grams 5 minis will fit in a large letter, so you pay the large letter postage rather than the small parcel. So one of the things that I've restocked this week in the shop are these leather tags. They come in a range of colours in a pack, so you don't have to choose, you can match it to your project, and these are designed to wrap around the edge of a project like that. You've got a heart one side and the little handmade with love on the other, which I think is really lovely. And you've got a range of colours as well, so there's like yellow and a more natural set as well, so there's a good range of colours, and those come in a smaller square as well, so that you can just sew them onto 4 little places. But I just think they're really useful for putting on projects, especially if they're gifts, just to give that little professional edge. So this week I have been catching up on orders from over Christmas and New Year, because I had a couple of weeks off. So please bear in mind that sometimes it might take a week or 2 for your order to be shipped if it is handmade. If it is just ready to ship items, I try and ship those the same day. But I have got quite a few bags and yarns to dye this week. So my next, I'm I'm doing a dye-in session tomorrow, so those yarns won't be shipped until Monday. So if they haven't been shipped already this week, they won't be shipped until Monday now. And I've got some more bags that'll probably have to go on to next week as well. So if you have put an order in the last couple of weeks, just bear in mind it might take me a little bit longer to catch up with myself with orders that were made over Christmas and New Year. So it's over to you now, Jensen. So Jensen, do you like your new jumper? What do you think? So Jensen is wearing his new strawberry sweatshirt. You can see it's quite roomy for 12 to 18 months. Lots of room in there. It's got quite a big neckline, obviously, because it needs to go over his head. So it hangs quite low at the front, but I think that's fine. It just saves doing any fiddly things around the neck when you're sewing it. And then we can see the back here, which is nice, and you can see that there's plenty of room in there for him to move around and play. And I'm really pleased with the shape of that. I'll be making lots more, and I think Jensen's quite happy because he's all snuggly in it. Thank you very much, Jensen. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I shall see you on next week's podcast. Bye!